with our next story, which is around the Premier League. We're at that stage of the show. We'll start with Nottingham Forest. I don't think there's been a better picture in all of the summer transfer window so far than the fabulous image of Evangelos Marinakis standing with Morgan Gibbs-White in the best ever vaguely disguised kidnapper and kidnappee situation I've ever seen. Now, obviously, Morgan was saying all the right things in his interview and all the rest of it, but there was a weird bang off it, and your man just has this fantastic gangster head on him, to be fair. It was a shock to everyone, that Gibbs-White situation. But they're doing business, Forest, and you would expect them to. I mean, they certainly laid down a marker when they came up into the division first with like 79 million signings. But it looks like they're doing solid bits of Premier League business, and holding on to Gibbs-White is a great start.
Yeah, I mean, they've also buoyed by that Alanga money from Newcastle, aren't they? Europe at the same time. And they are doing business. They're trying to do business. So we know they've done that deal for Ndoye, the Swiss winger. He's now in. He's arrived. So that's one in the door. They are still trying to do the deal. They've had that original offer for James McAtee, who did so well for the England team, didn't he, in the Euros as well. So they're trying to do that deal, which I think would be a great move for him. At the same time, so we're expecting that to happen. Also, the baby oil assassin who did so well at Wolves under Nuno, Adama, 29. You forget how old Adama is now, but he's been linked with them as well. Yeah, I mean, it probably is one of the images of some of that Marinakis and Gibbs-White. But Gibbs-White's got a new deal. He seems to be happy. And Forest are just starting to do a few bits. I mean, it's worth mentioning that about a week ago, Ben Doak was linked with a loan move to Forest. But having chased that up, I mean, it still could be possible. But with Ndoye arriving through the door, Adama being spoken to, James McAtee as well, I suppose it's still possible. It just feels like it might have dwindled down the list of priorities for them.
Yeah, I think it would be rude not to acknowledge the really impressive season that they had last season, and equally rude perhaps to suggest that they couldn't keep that going with the right recruitment. So very, very curious to see what Nottingham Forest do in the season to come. They are making a solid start. Let's go to United, because Benjamin Cesco is currently being linked more strongly with them than he is with Newcastle United. And you wouldn't be surprised to see that, because, you know, Cesco's a foreign player, and Manchester United are a very, very attractive name, and the tradition and the history. And it would just take the right snake oil salesman to come along and say, hey, listen, we're going to win the league next year. And maybe they sent their left back to do it, because that's what he was saying only yesterday in an interview. But he is very much now being more strongly linked with Manchester United than Newcastle United. I heard Ollie Watkins rumours as well. And at the same time, we know that Amorim would love to get rid of Garnacho, who he doesn't seem to fancy at all. There seems to be real tension between those two. And there's all sorts of other bits and bobs. But the bad news is that Cesco, should he end up at Manchester United as opposed to Newcastle United, that's causing us a problem, like in a very selfish way. This is a Liverpool show. If you don't like that, unlucky. It's an unfortunate situation for us, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it has been Newcastle's priority. We know that. There's been various stories, but United enter the mix. And I mean, if you're talking about authenticity, there's the Ornstein bomber there earlier today, wasn't he? That United are prioritising him. Newcastle, yes, are in the mix, but all the noises as well from Germany do seem to be that Cesco, as we said, will prefer to go to Old Trafford, despite what we think of that. You're right. We talked about last week around Ollie Watkins, and they were talking about him as an option, weren't they, as well? But it looks like he's dwindled. Maybe they can't do the deal with Villa that they want to, even they were trying ridiculous things with Emi Martinez on loan, weren't they, last week as well? And even in this reporting, it's notable to say, because you mentioned Garnacho, there's talk that as part of this deal, United want to send a player the other way potentially, because everyone's like, United don't have the cash right now to buy Cesco. Where are they going to get it from? Where's that coming from? And as you mentioned, Garnacho, his name keeps coming up, doesn't he? Chelsea is still linked, but I mean, obviously Chelsea aside, that are clearly short of players that can play wide, never mind. But that just keeps coming up. But as United fans and some journalists have christened them, there's a list of players that are referred to as, quote unquote, the bomb squad. The players they're trying to bomb out of United, aren't they? Like your Garnachos, Sanchos. They've got rid of Rashford as well, but they just can't seem to get it doing to sort their business that way as well. As it stands right now, we kind of hope Leipzig put a bit of pressure on this, to be honest, and say, like, okay, he's picked you, pony up, show us the money, this is the deal. Because Newcastle are there with the wages, the deal ready to go, aren't they? Because we know where they're getting their money from, of course. So let's hope Leipzig put some pressure on. The only sort of fly in the ointment a little bit is one of the people handling this for United is Vivell, who used to be a Red Bull man himself, isn't he? So very friendly with a lot of the Red Bull staff, their suits, whatever you want to refer to it as, which probably isn't the best thing for us. So, yeah, everyone's waiting a little bit on this. I suppose the only worry, as you mentioned, is does this just drag the saga out longer? If Newcastle don't pivot away from Cesco and wait for United to bid, not bid, put the money up, it just rolls and rolls and rolls, doesn't it?
I see a question there. It's a valid question a lot of people are asking. I think I tried to address my opinion on it a minute ago. I'd be interested to get yours. I think it's from Jennifer there talking about why in the hell would Cesco opt for United over Newcastle, given the situation with Newcastle, all the money and the Champions League football and all the rest of it. And, I think somebody came back with it's probably money, which is probably very, very valid. But then Newcastle can pay a lot of money. But really, it's probably just that simple thing I was talking about. It's probably just, a player from another country and the vast reputation of United and the promise that next year will be our year. It could be that simple. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it almost goes back to that it's a legacy, and whatever we think, and obviously we watch the Premier League abroad, Manchester United, and not being disrespectful, but it's a far, far bigger name than Newcastle, isn't it? It still carries that prestige despite all the comical things we've seen down the East Lancs Road. And it's not just Cesco. And Buemo did the same as well, didn't they? Kuna did the same as well. They wanted to go to United over Newcastle. You're right. Newcastle have a wage ceiling and United pay stupid wages. But I know people will say it's just the wages. Partly, but I do think it's the prestige, legacy, and how it's seen combined as well.
Yeah, think so. Let's go to Chelsea, who are still obviously buying players and in the being linked with players. We saw Jarell Hato, Xavi Simons. We mentioned both of those in the last show. Apparently, Cucurella is about to nail down another 18-year contract for himself. And you just mentioned Garnacho being linked there as well. In terms of outgoings, there must be one or two things there also for them to keep some effort at balancing the books. Talk to us around the latest Chelsea stories.
Yeah, there's a reason why it's still Romano's pinned tweet, isn't it? Still in talks that Hato wants that move to Chelsea. Everyone expects that to happen eventually at some point. They're still speaking to Red Bull, aren't they? Around Xavi Simons trying to make that. So they are trying to go double Dutch on those. They do still have the interest, like we say, in Garnacho. Everyone's waiting to see, does that happen? Does that get stepped up at the same time? And it was just funny, as you mentioned there, that Jarell Hato, who predominantly plays left back for Ajax, and obviously Chelsea have played a back four, a back three. Cucurella, who's had a mixed season but seemed to come strong at the end, he is a left back. And people were thinking, if Hato comes in, what does that mean for Cucurella? Well, Chelsea answered that, and they're set to offer him a contract extension. It's suspicion that he will go to, we're talking again, a 6 or 7 year style deal like they give them all. So, yeah, Sweeney Todd still doing bits there. And a name that is just an odd one, this. Chelsea don't want Nicholas Jackson because he loses his temper and gets sent off every 5 seconds, doesn't he? Whether it be at pre-season, Premier League, Club World Cup. United and Newcastle are both interested in Nicholas Jackson. They're just not interested at the Chelsea price right now. I mean, there's been various reports, Chelsea asking for around 80 million quid, which is just obscene. I know we had an okay season last year, but I think you need to shave a fair bit of that. But there is interest in Nicholas Jackson, so definitely want to watch that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's always the Premier League tax, Let's go to Newcastle now, because it's just going to double down on the topic we spoke about earlier on, Dave, but it's worth just reiterating it because, it is so odd that they can't manage to get deals over the line. Trafford's the latest to turn up his nose at them. They're being linked with Aaron Ramsdale. Brentford seem to be digging their heels in over Vissa. And I hope they do, to be honest with you, for Queevy and Kelleher's sake, because that guy's just gone to a team that's getting decimated and lost its manager. We've already talked about Cesco, who prefers Manchester United. They're looking apparently at 1 or 2 players outside the Premier League as well. I'll leave you to fill in people on that. And it looks like they've had an early loss as well in terms of injuries. So they're going to have to do some freaking business pretty soon, Dave.
Yeah, I think Newcastle fans feel the most hard done to almost, don't they, of the transfer window, the way it's worked out. I mean, we know the umpteen players that have turned them down. And James Trafford is now back at Manchester City, isn't they? So they've lost out on him. Aaron Ramsdale, that looks like that's set to happen, doesn't it? Alone with an option. So, yeah, I think we all know everyone's thoughts on Aaron Ramsdale. It's kind of funny. Even just a scan of the Newcastle sites and what their thoughts are on Twitter or X is quite funny at the same time. But the thing is that I don't know if it's hopeful for us. Maybe that's the wrong word, but we'll see. Newcastle is speaking still to a lot of strikers. They are speaking, as we know, to Cesco, Vissa there. Rodrigo Muniz as well was confirmed today, wasn't he? The Fulham boy that let's speak it. There's another couple of names that elude me now, but Newcastle are still trying to get attackers in the door. So they are trying, but we know how long Newcastle have been trying. However, the best thing seems to be, at least Vissa seems to want to go to Newcastle, doesn't he? And you'll see Muniz rather than just going for random targets who they know don't want to go to them in the first place. We'll keep an eye on that. Conor Gallagher, the Atletico Madrid boy, do you remember the former Chelsea boy? They had made inquiries over him at the same time. So we'll see if that happens. And I just wonder if that'll be accelerated now. Joe Willock was stretchered off in their friendly today. Now, there was initial reports that, it looked really serious. And Eddie Howe saying we're waiting on the scan. It might not be a major injury, but people shouldn't forget, the last time Eddie Howe said something like that Joe Linton had a knock. He was out for about 4 months, wasn't he, in that regard as well. So Eddie Howe won't really trust as a medical expert. So, I mean, if that happens, can you imagine if Willock's out long-term as well? God, it just adds to the list of things they need to do. But it is important to say, and I'll use that word, a bit of hope for us. Newcastle, as it stands, are speaking to about 5 or 6 forwards. So, yeah, if they can maybe just get 1 or 2 of them over the line, we might be able to sort something else, eh?
Yeah, I mean, the frustration of having to wait for them to do something is yeah, it's just really, really difficult to deal with. Our next story, and I think we may be getting to the end of Premier League stuff here, is Sunderland and Granit Xhaka. There's also a few other little bits. I know you've got a Leeds story, not great news for them. Everton doing bits. Creative accounting from Everton, fair play to them. They're a little bit late to the game, but it's nice to see them doing the trick that other people have done. And Arsenal as well, back in the mix for a highly rated footballer. So maybe you could take us through the wrap up, starting with Xhaka.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I kind of like this. We mentioned this with Leeds. It must have been about 3 weeks ago. The promoted clubs are having a real go this summer, aren't they? They're not doing the old boring Norwich of we'll spend 4 million quid and then wonder why we get relegated the next season and just take the parachute payments that way. I mean, Sunderland, a bit old in the tooth now, don't get me wrong, but Granit Xhaka, I think it's fair to say that's still a coup for Sunderland, isn't it? And the level for where they are and just coming up. So that's important as almost a leader in. They've also signed a brand new goalkeeper, whose name I'm not going to try and pronounce, but it's the French under-21. So they've gone for that at the same time. And also, they're trying to buy a forward from Leverkusen. Adley, I think it is, for major money. So Sunderland are having a right go. Fair play to them. Other teams having a right go. Leeds, we mentioned before, they've signed a few players. They missed out on the Feyenoord forward. I think it's Igor Paixão. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong because he's gone to Marseille. But they've had bids for people like Muniz, and there is suggestions that Leeds have still got major money and still want to make a couple of big splashes. So fair play to them. They're trying to do it that way. Trev, in terms of our rivals down the road, I'm not even going to bring this up. It's almost embarrassing. They've done a signing of a left back. Asnu, I think it's pronounced, from Bayern Munich, the young Moroccan. So that's a good one through the door. They're now one of the teams that's doing the plan of selling the women's team back to themselves for PSR and joining that crew as well. So, yeah, I'll let you all decide your thoughts around that. And then the other one just to keep an eye on, for what must be the 16th time this season, Arsenal are apparently back in for Eze at Palace, as was on that Sami Mokbel article there before. We've heard this before again, but fresh reports that they are speaking again. So I'd say it's one to keep an eye on, but it just keeps coming up. But it was freshly reported today, so worth mentioning.
I think an awful lot of people would have thought that the high-profile veteran that would have arrived at Sunderland was the ex-Liverpool captain, and he's instead at a different club. So it's an interesting turn of events. And I think Xhaka's sort of switching out a far better situation for Premier League football. So I guess Sunderland have got his money right. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.